If you know this card is shit, clap your hands. If you know this card is shit, clap your hands. If you know this card is shit, and it's really, really shit. If you know this card is shit, clap your hands. Thank you all for tuning in to an absolute banger of a breakdown of UFC Fight Night, Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan. This is one of those cards that you will not be telling your kids about. It is one of the most forgettable cards of all time. I don't want to say it's the worst ever, but the hype and kind of the fan reception to this card has to be some of the worst you'll ever see. This is one of those cards that if it was taking place in your backyard, I don't know if you watch this one. Like, do you really want to see Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan? But that's besides the point. I am the Cage Doctor. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go in and break this whole card down. Starting off with Dakota Hope versus Kai Kamaka. Sound like two characters out of Moana. Listen, I don't know a lot about Dakota Hope. These first two fights, I didn't really do a lot of research on, mainly because I didn't even see that this fight was on the card. I do know that Dakota Hope is a part of 4 Ounce Fight Club, which is Joshua Van, Alan Correa's gym. So I'm just going to go with Dakota Hope by decision. He comes from a pretty good gym. Also has shorter arms, so that doesn't help him. Extreme Couture guys are boring. And Kai Kamaka, the third, I don't really like that. If he was the second, maybe I would pick him. Up the card to Dion Barbosa versus Melissa Gatto. Melissa Gatto, she has had a couple of, I think all of her wins in the UFC are by finish. But she hasn't really been super active. She fights like maybe once a year. Barbosa lost a pretty close fight to Karine Silva, which I'm pretty sure was a robbery, if I remember. I think that she did win that, and before that she had beaten Diana Belbadita and lost to Miranda Maverick. So I'm going to go with Diana Barbosa by decision. Not super confident in this one, but again, these matchups are all shit. But let's start off with where the breakdown really begins. Azamat Bakoev versus Tresean Gore. I like Bakoev here. I'm not the highest at Azamat Bakoev. Obviously, kind of some of his hype as a prospect and kind of a fighter in the UFC got derailed after he kind of got exposed by Yusri Belguri, where Bakoev couldn't really land his takedowns whatsoever, or really just land cleanly at Yusri Belguri at all. I mean, Yusri is a tough guy to manage because he has good distance management. He's giant. He's hard to take down. He could just pick you apart from range. But Bakoev is going to come in here and he's going to try and wrestle a lot. He's got a ton of power in his hands. Going to fucking spam you with big overhands. Not really very defensively sound. Just kind of eats punches and beats up on cans. But I don't necessarily think that's going to hurt him against Tresean Gore, who just is not very good. Like, Gore can wrestle sometimes, but mostly he's going to keep the fight on the feet. Has a nasty guillotine in his bag. His last two fights, he lost to Rodolfo Vieira and got finished by Marco Tulio, which are not like terrible names to lose. I mean, Rodolfo Vieira is fucking old as shit. What am I doing? He got head kick KO'd by Bo Nickel. So that's a pretty bad loss in my opinion. But Gore's going to come in here. He's going to hunt for the big shots, not really land them. I'm just going to lean Bakoev by early TKO. I trust him more. I don't think Tresean Gore is very good. He's probably borderline getting cut. This is a bounce back fight for Bakoev, who I don't particularly think is very good. But Tresean Gore, I think, is pretty bad. So moving up the card to Haley Cohen versus Alex Pereira's sister, Alice. Actually not related to Alex Pereira. I think Dominic Cruz said that in her first fight that they're related. They are not. The thing about Alice Pereira is, though, she is a whopping 20 years old. She's a fucking kid. You know what I mean? She's just like She's just like fucking Billy Leotardo. He's a fucking kid. Her first fight in the UFC was against Montserrat Rendon, and it was weird because on the regional scene in her early days as a professional, she kind of fought with this aggressive style where she's coming at you. She's got big explosive movement, but in that fight against Rendon, was just weirdly circling around a lot, point fighting. Just didn't pressure a lot, again circled a ton. She can kind of mix in takedowns randomly that aren't particularly good. They kind of suck. Haley Cohen's going to kind of just go in there and try and wrestle you, not really grit the feet. The one thing that she will do is she will just throw random spinning attacks at you and spinning like back kick combos to, I don't know, throw you off. They don't really do much, but I'm going to lean Alice Pereira by decision. Just figured, like, even if she doesn't come in with this aggressive style that we saw on the regional scene, I do feel like her movement could just be too much for Haley Cohen, and she could kind of just pick apart Haley Cohen from range and do enough to win this by decision. Up the card, we go to Lando Venata versus Darius Flowers. What are you doing there, Darius? Nino. Sorry. Listen, this is Lando Venata's first fight in like 3 years. The dude, listen, he's never been a particularly active fighter. but this is returned to the octagon after a loss nearly 3 years ago to Daniel Zellhuber. So he's a Zellhuber victim, so that doesn't make you feel confident in picking him. But he's pretty well-rounded. He'll switch stances a lot, can blast kicks to you on the outside. I always felt like Lando Venata kind of got a tough draw in the UFC, even though he really has no, not even just elite wins, good wins, but his debut is against Tony Ferguson, as Tony Ferguson's going on that insane run. He'll also mix in some double legs and can kind of be dangerous on the inside, blasting big shots inside, and can defend takedowns pretty well. Darius Flowers is kind of an interesting case because he hasn't won in the UFC. He's a Muay Thai guy who's going to fucking throw a lot of kicks that have power on it, a lot of pressure moving forward, and his losses are all mostly to good guys. Like his last fight was against, what's that kid's name? Fucking Elder? Evan Elder. I fucking forgot the guy's name, but he lost to Jake Matthews by sub and Michael Johnson by decision before that. So he's lost to at least some decent names in the lightweight division. He could also kind of blast double legs on you, but his cardio is terrible. Like, I could see a world where he just blasts Lando Venata early and can knock him out in the first round, but the cardio worries me, so I'm going to go Lando Venata by decision. The return of the king, Lando Venata. After 3 years, he will be back. And another funny side note about Lando Venata, this guy was also claiming that dudes were reaching out to him to fix fights. Maybe they fucking paid him to take off 3 years from his job, but there's no way they paid this dude to fucking throw fights. I mean, who's fucking betting on Lando Venata fights? That would immediately be a red flag to the FBI. So that never made any sense to me, but I'm picking Venata by decision. Up the card to Alessandro Costa against Stuart Nickel. I've been kind of a Stuart Nickel hater for a bit. Like, he does have explosive double legs in his game. It could sprawl well and is dangerous on the ground. And I get that, Alessandro Costa, his hype kind of got derailed by that loss to Alden Correa, where he got hurt and then ended up getting finished. But before that, had wins over guys like Jimmy Flick, Kevin Boras, or Borges, however you say the fucking kid's name. And his only losses before the Alden Correa loss were to Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg. So he's really only lost to, like, pretty decent guys in the division. Nickel's gonna wrestle a lot, but on the feet, he is just terrible. It looks like you threw boxing gloves on like a fucking 8-year-old. He can't do shit. He lost to Jesus Aguilar and Lucas Rocha in his only 2 fights in the UFC. I'm gonna go with Alessandro Costa by a round 2 TKO. I just think he's so much better on the feet, and Stuart Nickel is not good whatsoever. Up the card to the feature fight on the prelims, Thomas Peterson versus Guilherme Pat. Another kind of weird one. Guilherme Pat's kind of like, he just fights like a weird heavyweight, like kind of this karate style, beat like fat ass Alan Fry in his debut. He'll throw the jab and the calf kick. Doesn't really push for finishes a lot, despite being like a pretty athletic dude, in my opinion. Thomas Peterson's got some wrestling, has some solid entries on singles and doubles, but he has no finishing ability whatsoever. Got destroyed by Vitor Petrino his last fight. Not a bad loss by any means, but you still got destroyed. I'm going to take Guilherme Pat by round 2 TKO. I could just see maybe Thomas Peterson survives for a round because Guilherme Pat doesn't really push for finishes. Like, he could have finished Alan Fry 100 times, which was one of the... Alan Fry just looks like such shit in the Apex. I forget what card that was on, but he looked terrible in that fight. So I'm going to go Guilherme Pat by round 2 TKO. Up the card to the main card opener of Robert Ruchala versus Jose Delano, making his debut in the UFC. Delano's going to switch stances a lot. Throws a lot better from southpaw, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen. Has good kicks, some nice knees, also has some nice head movement. And Ruchala is kind of this orthodox fighter who's going to throw a lot of wild overhands at you and kicks. Lost a close one to William Gomez back in Paris at his last fight. Was a pretty hyped up KSW guy, so this dude had, a nice push or nice hype coming into the UFC, but he's not very technical. He's pretty strong in the clinch and on the ground. But I just kind of like Delano better, a little bit more technical, has good head movement. I don't know. This one I'm not super confident on. I think a lot of people are picking Jose Delano. I think it should be close to that. I think Ruchala is still pretty dangerous. Looked okay versus William Gomez, who is a pretty, decent featherweight. But I'm going to lean Delano by decision in this one. Up the card to Tommy Guns McMillen versus Manolo Zaccini. This guy sounds like a fucking mob boss. He's literally a Sopranos extra. That's what Manolo Zaccini is. This guy hasn't fought in forever. I think it's almost been 3 years since he fought, and he got finished by Morgan Charrier. Tommy McMillan has a ton of subs in his bag. His striking's okay. He's literally going to look to grab you and just snap your head down any chance he gets. He's going to push a high pace on you, look for subs in a bunch of weird different positions. We don't really know how good of a wrestler he is yet. I don't really think he is that good of a wrestler. We don't really know. Zacchini, he has power on the feet. He's going to load up a lot on his strikes. Again, he hasn't fought in almost, I think, 3 years. He's not very tactical, but he is dangerous. I just like Tommy McMillen by submission here. I'm not even super impressed by Tommy McMillen whatsoever. I mean, he didn't look great in the Contender Series. As much as people want to glaze this dude on fucking social media, that was a really close fight where, credit to him, he really battled back in that one. It was a good win by him. I'm not taking that away. It was still a nice performance in terms of he was down, managed to come back and win a close decision. But, you know, you almost got finished multiple times. And you're hearing all about the stuff about him being, oh, he's going to be the next O'Malley and all this shit because they train under the same gym. I don't really think that, but that being said, he has nice submissions in his game, and Mazzolo Zacchini, not particularly good. Up the card, and this is where we're going to get a little controversial. Rafael Estevam versus Ethyn Ewing, and I love Ethyn Ewing. You know, he's got great boxing, great counter striker, obviously has great footwork, really showed levels against Malcolm Wellmaker on short notice and looked really good at Madison Square Garden. But Rafael Estevam is a tricky customer. When I saw this fight was announced, he's a big wrestler, uses teeps to control distance very well. He's undefeated in the UFC with wins over Charles Johnson, Jesus Aguilar, and Felipe Bunes. So he's beat some decent names in the bantamweight division / flyweight. And even though he's not super active, I kind of like him in this one. He's got nice ground and pound, not a submission guy despite being a black belt. He's also really good early on in rounds 1 and 2. And I think going up a weight class for Rafael Estevam is going to be good for him because he's usually a flyweight. Why'd I say he fought at fucking bantamweight and flyweight before? He's moving up to fight at bantamweight. I kind of like this for him. Like, Ethyn Ewing's got questionable takedown defense. You saw it a lot on the regional scene where he just would get taken down by nobodies. I'm nervous for Ethyn Ewing on the ground and defending takedowns. I think there's a possible chance Rafael Estevam could get a submit. I'm fucking split on this fight. Because on the other hand, I could pick Rafael Estevam to just smudge this guy. Maybe he gets a late submission. But also, Ethyn Ewing could just fucking shut this dude's lights out in the first round. What are the people saying? What are the people saying down here? It's... Let's think. If it goes to a decision, who do I think? Rafael Estevam, smudge him. Fuck it, I'm just going with my gut. I like Ethyn Ewing a lot. I want him to win this, but I do worry a little bit about the Rafael Estevam grappling and that he could just smudge this guy for 2 rounds. In the third round, maybe Ethyn Ewing has a big round, but it just isn't enough to win this. I think Rafael Estevam is going to win this by a close 29-28 decision. Up the card, we go to Abdul Rahman Yakayev. Sounds like a fucking... general in ISIS versus Brenson Ribeiro. Brenson Ribeiro's terrible. Looked like shit against Omar Sy back in France. I'm going to go with Yakayev here. He's aggressive. He's going to punish you with kicks and has really good grappling. And his takedowns will lead to slams and back takes. Very offensively aggressive. His defense sucks, but it really hasn't, it hasn't affected him in the UFC because nobody could punish him. He's fought bums. He destroyed Rafael Cerquera in his debut. He also has nice ground and pound, has the rear naked choke, has the guillotine, has the Darce choke in his bag. His style is very finish early. I'm interested to see as his career goes on because I think he is a pretty good prospect at light heavyweight. What's he look like as the fight goes into that second and that third round? Ribeiro has power, just doesn't really have any combos, is bad defensively. As I mentioned earlier, got subbed by Omar Sy in his last fight in France, got brutalized by Mirzakhanov before that. He's just not very good. Like, can grapple if he sees an opportunity to do. Like, we'll go in for guillotines. I forget that Dagestani guy that he went in for a guillotine against that he almost got. I'm just going to go Yakayev by TKO. He can win by sub 2. It's round 1 finish for him. Easy money for Abdul Rahman Yakayev. Brenson Ribeiro just kind of sucks. Up the card to the co-main event. The reason we're all here. Verna Chiwiwis Janaroba versus Tabitha Ricci. This fight sucks. I don't get this one. Verna Janaroba is going to grapple heavy. Doesn't really submit people. It's just kind of a control grappler. Lost to Mackenzie Dern in her last fight at UFC 321. And I picked her. I have no clue why I don't give a fuck about Verna Janaroba. I should just pick Mackenzie Dern because she's hot. Doesn't really have great entries on her takedowns, but can chain wrestle pretty well. Striking is very women's MMA. It's very meh, but she's very low volume. Richie's a better striker. She can pressure you against the fence, can grapple to a degree, like hold you on the fence. Richie beat Amanda Ribas in her last fight by TKO, I think in round 2. She's got good anti-grappling. I know a lot of people are picking Virna Jandiroba, but I'm going to go with the younger Tabitha Rich, who's won a lot of close robbery decisions. I'm kind of done with Virna Jandiroba. She looked like shit against Mackenzie Dern. And Virna Jandiroba might be the better mixed martial artist, in my opinion. But something tells me Tabitha Ritchie's going to win this one by decision. Maybe it's a robbery, but who gives a fuck about Virna Jandiroba? Moving up to the main event of the evening, the moment you've all been waiting for, Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan. I'll say this about this fight, because in the beginning I said, if you know this card is shit, clap your hands. If you know this card is shit, clap your hands. If you know, yeah, I did that whole song and dance in the beginning. I do like this fight. It is a good fight. Should it be the main event of any card? Should this be a main event of a bare knuckle boxing card? Should this be the main event of a GFL card, a Bellator, you name it? No, it should have nowhere near a main event of any MMA event. I don't even know if I put this as the fucking main event of Karate Combat. You know what I mean? Or fucking Street Beefs. You know what I mean? This is a good fight, but I wouldn't put it as the main event of literally anything. That being said, I think I'm going to go with Chris Duncan here. The one thing I'll say about Moicano, he can get punished when he lunges forward. I've seen Octagon Oracle do a breakdown on this, and he commits a lot to his shots. And he'll drop that hand, and that leaves him open for counters, and big counters, like we saw TKZ finish him that way. And Chris Duncan, throughout his career, has done a really nice job punishing dudes who don't have great distance management. And again, I think there are paths to win for Moicano. You know, he can get to that body lock takedown, which he's really good at. We saw him brutalize BSD in his last win. On the ground, you know, he's got nice ground and pound, can find a sub if it's there, but he hasn't won since that BSD fight, and BSD didn't even have a fucking coach in that fight. I mean, just pointing that out. And Chris Duncan, he's very weird, but I'll say this about him. He finds ways to win. He's 6-1 in the UFC. He's only lost to Manuel Torres, 4-fight win streak over guys who are a lot faster and more athletic on the feet than him, like a Balagioki, like a Rebecki, like a Terrence McKinney that we recently just saw. That was a great one-round war. I know Chris Duncan's slow on the feet, but this dude hits hard. He has good cardio. Not an insane athlete by any means, but he's so tough. He throws overhands to get to his takedowns, mixes it up, good on the feet, has a nice straight right, which is really one of his best weapons, can check kicks, mix in elbows and knees. Also has pretty good fight IQ, like doesn't panic, you know, just stays within his game, can use his striking very well to get to his grappling, will also chase that guillotine a lot. I just like Chris Duncan here a lot more. Like, Moicano might be the better fighter. Even Chris Duncan said, this guy's messed me up at American Top Team a couple of times because these guys both train at the same gym. But Renato Moicano gassed down his last fight against Beneil Dariush. Didn't really look great in that fight after he dropped him. Duncan's strong. He's slow, but he doesn't gas. Moicano, I think, is really going to need to do a lot of damage early in round 1, kind of like how he did against BSD if he wants to win this. But I don't think he's going to do that against Chris Duncan. It's over a year since that BSD fight. I don't think Moicano is the same guy. I'm going with Chris Duncan by round 3 or 4 TKO. I also want to see Chris Duncan in the rankings simply because we just got to move this old guard out of here. The Moicanos, the fucking Dariush's, the Chandlers. These dudes got to get out the rankings. Chris Duncan, maybe not my favorite lightweight prospect, but a good one nonetheless. Scottish, you know, he's pretty much Irish in my opinion. He kind of sounds like it. We're going to win this fucking Braveheart. Fucking brave. Chris Duncan is going to win this fight by round 3 TKO. Let me know what you guys think about my picks down in the comments below. Obviously not a great card whatsoever. Hopefully it's fun to watch. I mean, this is not a card with a lot of like, ooh, that's kind of a fun matchup. Like people are hyping up the Tommy McMillen fight. That's not really going to be super exciting. I think Ethyn Ewing versus Rafael Esteban could be a fun fight. I hope it is. I just hope we get fun finishes then, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of... I think it could be decision heavy. I don't even know if I picked a lot of finishes, honestly. I already fucking forget all my picks. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at The Cage Doctor. Thank you all for watching. The Doctor is signing off.